And we are live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode number 7 of Taking Stock. This is a hobby content collaboration between Sports Cards Live and the Sports Card Dad Network. And we just lost DPZ. He'll be right back. Today is Tuesday, July the 18th, 2023. And as soon as we get him back, there he is, that guy right there. That is Dennis Zender. My name is Jeremy Lee. Welcome, everybody, to Taking Stock, and want to thank everybody who joined us last time. We had a great episode talking about hobby content. You can see that on the Sports Cards Live and Sports Card Dad YouTube channel, as well as the Sports Card Live podcast, where you can go listen to it. As always tonight, your comments and your questions are in play. Let's get to it. Dennis, first off, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I am good. Doing great. Really excited to have this conversation tonight. I feel like it's a necessary topic, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the comment section has to say about it. I mean, this is content itself, but I think it's a great place and a forum and an opportunity for us to discuss hobby burnout, what that means to everybody, what that means to you, and what it means to me.
Yeah, it's I think it's an interesting topic because I think most people go through some lulls. We go through our own little cycles. We know the hobby goes through cycles in terms of values and participation and the velocity of transactions and content. All these things are always going through cycles. But I think we as hobbyists, no matter how you approach it, I think we also go through our own little cycles in our own head. And sometimes we're really excited and really, aggressive and searching and hunting and for cards and for trade partners and for things to do hobby-wise, content to consume. And other times we we take a step back. We just sort of reduce our involvement a little bit, or we want to maybe we are feeling a little bit burnt out for various reasons. And I think there's lots of different reasons why people can encounter some hobby burnout. And I think it's really those reasons that are interesting, as well as, what you do to cope with it and to bounce back, if you will, because you can burn out and actually be burnt out to the point where you don't come back, where you're not going to get back into the hobby. And I think we want to, if you love this hobby, you probably don't want to do that. If you have collecting in your veins, you probably don't want to do that. But some people probably do. They may get too burnt out. So there's lots of stuff there. I'm curious from the chat, sort of, if you're watching, if you're in the chat right now live, let us know. Have you ever had some burnout? Have you ever felt some burnout coming? Why was it? And maybe what did you do? Hobby Champs was first in the chat today. Be sure to follow Hobby Champs on Twitter. What is going on? Spurs Cards, good evening to you. Trader Griff's in the house. Chris J, good evening. John Fishman, I quit my job to play blackjack full time. All right, good luck. That's going to take luck for success, so good luck to you for sure. Hobby Champ says, we may sleep, but the hobby never sleeps. It's always there chugging along in the background. Yeah, no matter what we are doing, the hobby is always doing continuously, right? Hello to Name, Indigenous Rookie Cards, Hockey Cards Plus. What's going on? John Fishman, one time when I ate too much acid. Yeah, you want to be careful with your acid intake, John Fishman. Definitely something to be careful with. Trader Crifts, my daddy didn't raise any quitters. I like that. I like that right there. No quitters here.
No quitters here.
John Fishman, I'm learning from Mr. Peapod.
Yeah, I think Joey's episode is still getting some mileage there with Mr. John Fishman. So I hear you there.
All right. Well, good. And Bay Area guy, Panini was the reason why I got burned out. Okay, let's start right there. Panini was the reason why I got burnt out. So, and I think that's a typical thing. I mean, I'm going to guess from Bay Area guy's perspective, I think a lot of people watching, Dennis, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but if you are a completionist, you want to have like every card of your player. Mm-hmm. I mean, Panini, Upper Deck, Tops, with the amount of products that they are pumping out each year for their respective sport or sports, I mean, there's a lot to keep up with there. And is that why you get Burnout, Bay Area guy, and anyone else? Like, because Dennis and I talked about this. Can you get burnt out or experience some burnout simply because there's too much product all the time? Is there too much product coming your way? And just here's the other thing though, just because there's so much product, like, are we a slave to our players' checklist? Do we have to purchase every single card of our player that comes out by Panini every single year? Is that causing burnout? And if so, maybe you need to scale back your want list, something like that. What do you think, Dennis? Is that
Yeah, I think collecting is very complicated in the modern market. I think if you're collecting a player, there are so many different different types of cards, different sets. There's the parallels and the different inserts within the sets. I mean, inserts aren't really are a thing really now, but let's say parallels. There's so many different parallels. There's so many different refractors. It becomes almost nuanced just to collect any type of card. I mean, I'm a Bowman Chrome guy, so we'll talk about Bowman Chrome, the shimmers, the aquas, the blues. You know, I bought a card that said and read blue refractor, and for some reason I thought it was a blue refractor. I just didn't look close enough. And I bought a card that was not a true blue refractor. It was blue lava. And I just didn't see the indentations on the blue. So you get caught up in, you know, it gets confusing sometimes, even for somebody who's been, you know, I kind of want to consider myself a little bit more savvy than I was a few years ago. And I've learned the true colors are when it comes to refractors and Bowman. And I think the same thing applies across the board with, you know, Panini products. It's going to be, you know, all these different types of, you know, what are the most important? I think you got to just narrow down to gold and those types of parallels, but it still becomes really difficult to collect when there's so much. There was a comment that Josh made on one of their episodes of the crossover where he mentioned that, you know what, it doesn't bother him that there's more parallels. It just makes those golds and those one of ones that much more sought after and special because you have so many other cards that, you know, preclude it. And it basically builds that card up even more. And there's another side of the camp that says there's just too many. It waters down everything. It just makes it too difficult. So I can understand the fatigue in trying to collect in today's day and age.
Yeah, I agree with that comment that the more uninteresting or unimportant or less desirable on a personal basis, the more of those cards there are, the more the special ones do stand out. And that's always been the case, though. I think that's, you know, it doesn't matter how much there is, you're always going to kind of search for those shiny penny kind of cards, the ones that really catch your eye, the ones that are established as most important. Hockey Cards Plus says in 40 plus years have taken a few breaks. Not sure it was burnout, more like life events, you know, college children. That makes a lot of sense. And I think, you know, we'll talk a bit about that more in terms of what, you know, things can be going on in our lives that can change our gumption for the hobby. Like here's an example, Dennis. It sort of ties into this, but you know, I think about, you know, going through my own life in the past when I'm feeling very bullish on the economy, when I'm feeling bullish about my own personal finances, when I've gotten a promotion, when I've gotten a bonus, when I've gotten a word of encouragement from the CEO of my company saying, you know, you're doing a great job. You know, you feel like your job is secure. You may be looser. You may be willing to buy more cards because that is your present for yourself. Maybe it's every day. Maybe it's 10 times a day. You're buying yourself a present, sort of retail therapy. But when you're feeling good about your income and you're feeling like your income is going to be continuously streaming inwards into you, I think that makes it easier for people to spend money. Whereas when you may feel like your job is in jeopardy, or maybe you're not sure what's coming next, you know, maybe then you lay off the cards a bit or a lot, and you are more particular in what you buy, if at all, or you just go through a phase. And I think a lot of this is it can be based on your personal financial situation, of course. It can also be based on your mood. You know, it can just be based on your mood for many different reasons. John Fishman says, I got burnt out from all the damn parallels. What is up, Steve? And yeah, we kind of talked about that. That can burn you out. And like Dennis was saying, that's when you got to hone in on the ones that mean the most to you. I'll rip through some comments here. Matt Karp says, I was feeling a bit of fatigue, but it was because I was disorganized in my thoughts. Once I figured out what I really wanted, staying in the hunt was better for me. It made me slow my spending. That's a great point from Matt here. I think, Dennis, is that you got to kind of organize and figure out what it is you want. There's so many awesome cards in this hobby. You can be buying a card. You can spend all your money in one day if you want in this hobby, right? It doesn't matter how much money you have, but you need to. I think it's good advice, and I think Matt experienced this, as he says, is really hone in on what you want. Have a list. That's a way. That's a way to do it. The professor says not burnout, but saturation or plateau of my enthusiasm. My local LCS are not engaged, but with virtual LCS relationships are helping. So that's just a matter of access, and really interaction with people. The more access you have, I think the more active you'll be. The more interaction you have with people. And Dennis, you and I were talking about this just the other day. Like, your experience in the hobby has been enhanced by your relationships. You want to speak to that for a
Right.
second?
Yeah. The relationships, I believe, Jeremy, are a key component to the hobby experience that you have. If your only experience is going into your LCS, I feel like you're missing out. It's limited. Now you get to engage with your, maybe you have a trade night, maybe you have people and friends that you meet up with there to look at cards, buy cards, talk about cards. But for the most part, I feel like this will probably segue into our next topic of conversation. The content we consume online, and that's how I met all these people. It's through those communities. For me, I started with Lucas. I was listening to Luca Tiger Braun, their podcast every day. I was listening. I became, a contributor, like in these comment sections. I was contributing all the time. I felt like I had something to say, so I got a show. I started to meet all these people. Next thing I know, I'm interviewing all these different people from all throughout the hobby. I'm getting to know so many new people, and you learn and grow, and you get to explore other people's thought processes and experiences, how they've navigated the hobby for the past however many years, or how they've navigated the hobby for the past 3 years or last year or last 6 months. You get the whole picture. And I believe those relationships you develop it's a really important component to your experience in the hobby. It makes it fun. It gives you an ability to escape the real world. Right. I think what's happening right now, and this is a take, I don't know if you call it a take, it's taking stock. I think a lot of people, and I've said this before, have lost money. I think when things were great, the content was mostly great. It was mostly positive, uplifting. Things were going to the moon. People were making money. People swooped in to take advantage of that situation to make money. Now things have changed. Now people are underwater. It costs more money to drive places. It costs more money to live. And people have different job situations. You talked about when your job's great, your boss tells you, hey, you're doing a great job. That instills confidence for you to maybe go out. Hey, you're going to get a great bonus this year. That'll instill confidence for you to go out and maybe buy more cards or feel better about, spending that disposable income. But now that's not happening. Now people are underwater. People are selling cards at a loss. People are holding on to cards that are worth hardly, not nearly what they were worth when you bought them. And unless you truly love the cards, unless you're truly into the fact that this player, the experience, nostalgia, the community, you're connected, you're going to leave. You're going to go, well, this isn't fun anymore. This is actually stressful. This isn't enjoyable. And you get burnt out. Maybe you listen to a lot of content to try to make yourself feel better about it, but it's those community relationships. Those are important too. But I think that right now, the tenor of the way things are within the hobby landscape, I believe, has a direct impact on how everybody's behaving. People are on edge. And so the content is really geared around that. And I think that when that content's geared around all of that stuff, because when you look hard enough, you're always going to find the negative. When you're geared around that, it's just going to keep building on itself. And it's going to make it, it's going to burn people out.
Yeah. Listen, well said. And so we've got a whole bunch of comments. I've got 17 comments start. So I'm going to rip through these. Dennis, but you ended that by bringing content into the discussion. So I'm going to go through what we have, and by the time we get through them, I'm sure we'll have some that are talking about content, guys. So let's run through what we have here. First of all, good evening to Frankie Gonzalez. Always a pleasure. Scott Noble says, I didn't get burnt out on the hobby, but I did get burnt out on the sheer amount of Patrick Waugh cards and really had to step back. So that's a player collector who's a completist or completionist, I don't know what the right word is, who is like, enough is enough, I need to step back. I think a lot of people have experienced that lately. And if you can just whittle down that checklist, you might be able to stay in and continue to enjoy collecting that player as much as you did before. Bay Area guy says, I got so turned off that I strictly buy vintage football now. There you go. You're focusing. That's a good response, I think, to making sure you're not going to get burnt right out of the hobby. Trader Griff's, worst thing about Panini is the horrible quality control they have given up and printing to the moon, watered down Yeah, if you feel like the product that you want to buy has poor quality control and is watered down to the moon, stop buying it, right? Find something different to buy. And if that's the only thing you like, then you have to question being in the hobby, I think. Or I don't have an or. Actually, I don't have an or to that. Hobby Champ says, when I'm feeling burnt out, I switch focus to players' cards from my childhood. Always seems to reignite my passion. So I think what Hobby Champs is saying is I'm tapping into my nostalgia. And that, to me, nostalgia is the foundation of collecting sports cards. And so that is a great strategy, I would say, is tap back into what you love about the cards, the subject matter of the cards. Zach Pierce says, people make the mistake of selling off when they feel burnout. This is such a smart comment so far by Zach, because it's so true. You get burnt out, you're starting to have some negative thoughts, you start to sell cards. He says, people make the mistake of selling off when they feel burnout. Don't have to sell to take a break. That's true. You don't have to sell to take a break. Just seems like people are all or nothing, spending crazy money weekly or totally getting out. Yeah, I think there's a lot of that goes on out there. So great comment, Zach. And yeah, you don't have to sell off when you're feeling burnt out. Maybe that's the worst time to sell because you're not in the right frame of mind. Dennis, you got something to jump in on?
Well, no, it's like what you've said before. I remember this. It's not a loss, a realized loss, until you sell it at a loss. Until you sell it at a loss. And I mean, I guess if you have a Zion base PSA 10 that you're in way too deep in, yeah, maybe that'll never be that'll always be a loss depending on what you spent. But some of these cards, they're probably going to work their way back, depending on what the kind of card is and the player. Feel good about the stuff that you felt good about when you bought it and ride it out. So yeah, you're right. It's not an all or nothing game. You should find the middle ground. Step away. There's so many comments, Jeremy. Keep going. There's so many of them.
Basketball card guy John, look forward to seeing you next week, says, if you feel burned out, you should step away from it. Card collecting is a hobby and hobbies should be fun. I wouldn't be doing this if it didn't make me feel positive. And if you know John, he's one of the most positive presences in the hobby, truly loves it. Yep. Now, the only thing I would say to the comment where he says, if you feel burned out, you should step away. I'm asking John, what do you mean step away? Permanently, for a couple of days, for weeks, for months, or until you get your head back in? I think you can literally step away for half an hour sometimes, or just like get your head straight. Just think about think about the positive things in the hobby. And by that, I mean the things that you love about it. Again, go back to what I've said oftentimes, Dennis, is go back to your cards. If the hobby has you down, if hobby content has you down, go back to your cards. If you love your cards, that should be a restart in your own head.
I love it. And Jeremy, let me add to that. This is something I would welcome everyone to think about. And I love John. John is, until you join again, perfect. But John, he's one of the best, the absolute best in the hobby. Just an amazing collector, an amazing person, human being. So really glad to see you here, buddy. What I will say, this is what I would assume, because we talked about this yesterday, Jeremy. The hobby content I kind of was raised on it within my hobby experience. I was kind of raised on hobby content the last 3 or 4 years. So, there's obviously a lot more hobby content out there. I mean, I'm even doing it now. I was not doing it a couple years ago or a year ago. So that tells you there's more content. Maybe if you turned off all the content, you didn't watch any shows. Of course, we want you to watch Taking Stock every Tuesday night. Please keep doing that. But if you wanted to take a break from watching content or observing or consuming content, if you stopped consuming content for like a month and you had to look at your cards without somebody making you feel a certain way about them, if that's what's happening, I'm just asking, honest question here. If you did that, how many of those cards would you keep? If you weren't being inspired, say, if you had no conversations with any other hobbyist, nobody in your community, all you were left with was your cards. How many of those cards would you keep? How important would those cards be to you? I think it's kind of a litmus test for the hobbyist. Are you really into your cards? Do you love them? If you took all the content away, you didn't pay attention to all the good and the bad and all the positive and people arguing over what's positive and should, I don't know. I think that would be an interesting test to take. Just turn it all off and enjoy your cards for a month. Maybe that's stepping away. Maybe that's a way to step away from it.
Yeah, I've thought about that sometimes. Oh, maybe, take a day or a week off of social media, but then it's like, well, I like keeping up with things myself. So
I know it's hard.
Indigenous Rookie Card says the social media aspect of collecting got me burnt out about a year ago. Had to take a step back from my socials for a while. Trying to make YouTube videos and post frequently on Instagram was a lot. Yeah, we put pressures on ourselves, especially if you are active on social media. You've seen the advice. You post every day or post this many pieces of content on this many platforms every day to stay relevant and this and that. And that's a lot of pressure. It's like, oh, I forgot to post one day. What does that mean? Like, who cares? Post when you want, take part when you want, customize the hobby for yourself and your involvement on social media. Good evening to you, Stooks. Great to see you. Frankie says, for me, having a side PC helps out when I get burnout from my main collection. Diversity helps, set collecting, finding other players to collect, all that helps. Diversifying. I like that, Frankie. Find an alternative. Find something else to focus on if you're burnt out by your main player that may have too many cards. Bay Area guy says, I challenged myself to put together the top 250 career rushing leaders since the running back position is a dying position. I mean, I think this makes a lot of sense. Find a project. Define it yourself. Find a project that you can get behind, a sport you love, players you enjoy collecting, and pursue it. Yep. See how it goes. And if you don't love it halfway through, give yourself permission to find something different. Keep the cards you love, sell the ones you don't want anymore from that initial challenge, and go on from there. Iconic Baseball says, to me, the antidote to hobby burnout is hobby focus. I mean, that's a clever statement. Like that's insightful right there. I think we should all kind of, read that again type of thing. The antidote to hobby burnout is hobby focus. I think we've kind of said that a couple times, but that puts it very succinctly. Iconic Baseball, great comment. Thank you. Mr. Squirrel says, I burned out from the sport of hockey entirely. I had to take 2 years away from even watching it. I can thank collecting for getting me back into what I enjoy. Just started collecting 3 months ago. Welcome back to the hobby, Mr. Awesome. Squirrel. Mike Petty has got burned out by all these crazy inserts with fake patches and everything. Yes, hear you, Mike Petty. Stu says, I can't remember a day I felt burned out in the hobby in the last 56 years.
Wow.
I think you're very fortunate if that's the case and you're doing it right. You probably have a lot of great advice to give in that department, Stooks. Brad Keeney says, focusing on those I collect and not who influencers say are going up is my thing. I mean, that's a no-brainer right there. Collect what you like, consume content for enjoyment and some education along the way, but not for investing advice. Definitely not for that.
Let me ask this question to you, Jeremy, and maybe the chat as well. We all say just collect what you like, collect what you love, don't listen to what people are saying, but yet so many people are watching all of these different, shows that talk about cards that they think are, people were watching those shows regardless. I mean, it was happening. And there's a comment I'm sure you'll get to later that speaks to that. You felt burnt out because of that, following the advice, and maybe you're learning and growing and you don't know any better. And so you're just going to follow the lead of someone that may know what they're doing or may perceive to be known what they're doing. I feel like we say that, but yet we still watch those shows. And I mean, are we getting inspired, Jeremy? Are you ever inspired to maybe think about something differently? Think about maybe a player to collect or a way to collect by watching content, or is it all?
Yes.
You steer clear of that
all the time. But it's a certain kind of content that has that effect on me, that inspires, influences, whatever, that gets me looking online for other cards like it or that card or whatever. And it's really, it's just somebody showing a card. It's got nothing to do with these cards are going up. I scroll right by that content. I don't click into those YouTube videos like ever. I never watch how to make money on cards. I never watch what cards are going up in value. It doesn't interest me in the least. And that's why I've never created that kind of content, because I don't. Why would I creative, I wouldn't consume it. So not at all for me. Not at all. What up? What up? Carvin Chung, the architect in the house. Good to see you, buddy. See you in a couple. See you next week. Cards and Comics says negative content gets views. Yes, that's a proven formula right there. Mike Petty says, I agree with Dennis. People don't enjoy getting their teeth handed to them. Like I've said before, no doubt. And that, I think what we're talking about there often is like when your financial decisions within the hobby don't work out, and that can be from group breaks, busting product, or buying prospects, or just getting in at the wrong time, like the peak Q1 2021. Not a good time to be buying cards. Cards and Comics says, I do collector comment and get no views. I'm getting out of content creation now. I would have to see your content to opine on why you get no views, Cards and Comics, but I don't know. I need to watch it to see. Zach Pierce says, unless you lost a ton, you should feel good now. It's a lot more fun than during the boom when prices were crazy. Don't get some of the doom and gloom people have. I'm buying like crazy. Yeah, like I've been saying for a few months now, now is the best time to be buying cards we've seen in the past 3.5 years or so. And I've seen some other comments come up like, there are some great deals out there. Yes, there are. There's another comment we're going to get to in a moment that I thought made a lot of sense. The Mangini collection says, if you're not feeling burned out, you ain't working hard enough. Hobbies are meant to make you feel stressed. I think that is a tongue-in-cheek comment through and through. Carvin says, remember the 3 rules of collecting. Don't FOMO, don't YOLO, and stay in your lane, which results in spending within your means. I think that's just good, clean type of advice.
Great advice.
Don't Select says, I think people are mad they still can't get the high-end cards the big YouTubers are bragging about. Yeah, this is a position that I've never really quite understood, because if you're a hobbyist who is, this just speaks to being jealous of people with better cards than you, more expensive cards than you. Well, then you're probably jealous of the people driving Ferraris and Lamborghinis and the people living in the most expensive zip codes in your state or your city. You probably are just a jealous, envious person if that's what is burning you out, because there are so many gorgeous, affordable, inexpensive cards in this hobby. But if you're just striving to get the, NT RPA and the Brady Contenders Champ ticket and the PMGs from 97, all this, if those are your goals, but it's not within your means, manage your own expectations. Find something that is more within your means, because it's not just cards. It's every area of life. Maybe you're wearing a Casio and not a Patek Philippe. Not everybody can afford these things.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, Jeremy, I feel like there is some merit in that comment. There is some of that envy, right? Maybe it's not you're mad. Maybe you're just like, damn it, like I can't afford to buy these really cool cars. I want to buy one of those, and I'm never going to be able to afford to buy it. I mean, forget fractional. I mean, that obviously didn't seem to work out, and we're like, I'd love to snag one of those really cool cards. It feels like there's like the elite that have the greatest and nicest cards, and the rest of us are just, clamoring for the scraps. So
yeah, but the elite, Dennis, is like the 1% club.
I know.
What you're seeing on Instagram is the 1% club. And my next response is then, if seeing that is making you feel inadequate or jealous or envious, that's not a play. Don't put yourself there. Don't put yourself in that situation. Stop following those accounts if that's making you feel bad about yourself or making you just live with jealousy. I mean, that to me, like, yeah, you're not going to be able to afford those cards, but you're also not affording the houses those people are living in, or the cars they're driving, or the watches they're wearing, or the private schools they're sending their kids to, and so on and so on and so on. Stay, as Carvin said, stay in your lane. There's a comment. Where did it go here? Someone was talking about here. Kamikaze Sports Car says, I'm content buying cards when something sells on my ComC account. Otherwise, I window shop and add to my watch list. The key word there is content. Kamikaze Sports Cars is content being in his or her lane. And I think that's a great approach right there. Okay, John says, a lot of the most burned out folks I've met are burned out because they took advice from other people and never really got it for themselves. They saw success as defined by others and chased it. Yeah, that makes sense to me what John is saying here, Dennis. But the thing about it is that where my head goes immediately on this comment is newer entrants to the hobby that came in because they were seeing a lot of YouTube content that was telling them what to buy, and they took that advice and they are now down in value, and so they're getting out. Well, they were never really in at the beginning. They saw dollar signs. Not all of them, John, but a lot of them saw dollar signs. So I don't think the hobby is any better or worse off without those people still in. But the ones who came in the boom and stuck it out because they fell in love with it. I mean, those are the people we want to keep because they love it,
Right.
just like we all do.
Right.
Mookie Chilson, here's a test. Next time you feel burned out, can you delete eBay from your phone? The saved searches can be the most dangerous content there is. No, I can't.
I was gonna say the same thing, Jeremy. Have you ever tried? I think I tried. I did it. It was like a day. I lasted a day.
No, I've never done that. Ever since you could actually see pictures on your phone, and eBay had an app along with everything else. No, I've never deleted it, and I don't expect that I will. Zone Select says there are a lot of great cards out there, still cheap. The hobby is still exciting. Yes, Zone Selects for the win right there. There are a ton of beautiful. I recently got into these Gallery of Hero cards. I found them on ComC, and the most I think I've spent on one is like $40, and I'm getting big names. I'm not getting Michael Jordan or Tom Brady. I don't even know if they have them, but I'm getting guys like I got Tim Duncan, I got a Karl Malone, I got a Cal Ripken Jr., I got a Babe Ruth, I got a Hank Aaron, a Yogi Berra from these ones from 2013. Beautiful cards, love them, and they're super affordable, and they bring me as much happiness as $1,000 card does or a $5,000 card. They legit they do. Skeppy, good to see you, says burning out is a sign of overactivity or too much of something. It means you're not setting discipline or higher level goals and projects. See, I think he's onto something here, especially when what he says it means you're not doing is what we're saying you should be doing. Have discipline, stay in your lane, have higher level goals, have goals and projects that are within your means. That's going to ground you. And just again, it's about managing your own expectations for what your hobby experience should be and what your collection should be. So just play within your means, stick in your lane, as we've seen before in the comments already. Bay Area guy says my son would love to open a high-end product, but it's way out of his price range, so he decided to stop collecting. Well, so be it, is all I can say to that. Is so be it. If you can't afford it, it's like I can't afford a Ferrari, but I'm still driving. And I'm not saying this in comparison to where Bay Area son, I need to drive. I got kids. I need to drive my car. But if you can't afford the best of the best or whatever it is that you want, you either go to something else, or like Bay Area guy's son did, you stop collecting because it doesn't work for you. And I think that's fair. I think that's okay, Dennis. If all you want is the best, but you can't afford it and you don't want anything else, who are we to tell you that you need to find something else?
Yeah,
it's nice if you can, but you don't have to.
You don't have to. I think that's a valid point. If you don't enjoy, if you only want and aspire for those certain cards and you can't afford them or there's no way to attain them, then why buy the stuff that you don't really want? You're just going to want the other thing anyway. I don't know. I kind of agree with that line of thought.
90s Collector, good to see you. Cards and Comics has done 450 videos over 3 years. If you're getting no views, you got to change up your content. It's obviously not hitting home. It's not resonating with people. It's, and also look at your average view time. If your average view time is like under a minute or 90 seconds, your content just isn't hitting home. It's just not resonating with people. And either do it because you love it for yourself or find a new angle. I would think. Bay Area follows up and says, my son came to me a month ago and had me sell off his cards due to the ability that he cannot afford buying high-end product. Maybe we did that one. It's very similar to the last one, but yeah, we covered that one for sure. Victor says, I think deals were better last year. Prices still seem too high. I don't know. I think last year prices, generally speaking, were higher, but it depends what you're looking at, Victor. Maybe we're looking at different things. US Sports Card says, if anybody feels burned out, go to your closet and dig through a box you haven't dug in for a while and reconnect with your cards. Collecting doesn't always have to be buying. Hallelujah. Right there. That's what we were saying before. you can always go back to your cards, no matter what is getting you down in the hobby. You can't afford what you want to buy. Too many cards of your player, poor quality control, too many parallels, hobby content getting you down, whatever it is. Go to your cards. Relive those mail days. We're in this hobby, and as collectors, Dennis, I find like the hunt is so exciting. The waiting for the mail day is so exciting. Opening up the bubbler is so exciting. Processing it into your collection, so much fun. But once you put that card in its deep, dark place in its box, wherever you store it, we're already on to the next. Looking for that next jolt of adrenaline or whatever it is when we can get that next card and search for that next card.
Right.
The professor says LCSs have an important role in providing liquidity in the hobby, but if you only want to sell cards at an LCS and not provide liquidity, then a collector turns to relationships with virtual LCSs. I mean, listen, every shop owner is different, and they're not all going to be the same, that's for sure, and they're not all going to cater to you. So yeah, we're lucky to live in a connected world now where you can go outside of the LCS in your town or city or one of them, and you can find other trading partners, other hobby participants, and build relationships. The LCS is the important role of providing liquidity. That it's sort of, but it hasn't always been that way, because the liquidity has been 50%. We'll give you half book. Back in the day, it was half a book value was what an LCS would pay because they had to pay rent. Now that's no longer acceptable. And some stores make they market themselves based on providing liquidity, but I think they're few and far between. They are the forward thinkers, and they are the ones that are going to do better in the long run, I think.
I think there's a fun way too. Like you talk about, creating side PCs or coming up with a new plan. Like there was a time where I was like, I want to get the whole O-Pee-Chee run of Wayne Gretzky from 79 all the way to 90. I wanted to get all of them. It didn't have to be, 9, 10, 10s, it's maybe 8s, good, nice, well-centered copies of all of those cards. I thought that would be a really cool set to have. I know I'm not the only person who's trying to do that, but, of course, getting the 79 is a pretty big spend, but stuff like that. I pick a player, and maybe it's a different player. Maybe it's a more affordable player if it's hockey or baseball or football. That's kind of fun too, when you just try to almost like putting together a run or a set of 80s, because there isn't all the parallels and all that stuff. It's a little easier to hone in on what you want to do. Stuff like that's kind of fun if you're a collector.
Agreed. Luigi says envy is a very slippery slope, for sure. Cards and comics, thanks guys. It's just tough going 1 month with 0 new subs. I'm going to focus on 90s box breaks. Yeah, keep trying different things, cards and comics. Definitely keep trying different things until something, especially if you're passionate about making comment. Mangini right here says he subscribed, had to, and I saw you in the pirate hat. Dennis right there is saying reach out. We'll have you on a collector series, which will help you gain more views and just more attention out there. So that's really nice. Stuke says family first, then job, and finally hobby. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses in the hobby. Be happy with what you have. Yeah, it's easy. I think to Stu, I think it's easier said than done for a lot of people. We're sitting here saying this, but unless you're walking in these other people's shoes, it might be tough to actually do that. So I just want to say, sort of sensitive to that, even though we're saying, kind of do it. Just stay in your lane. Be happy with what you have. Don't just strive to own what everybody else has. Son of a silver stacker, good to see you. Welcome to the show. Zach Pierce says, I own 4 and 5 figure cards, but still love sorting through quarter boxes. If you don't enjoy the hobby because you can't buy $10,000 cards, do you really love the hobby? Yeah, I think there's some merit to that comment. Like, yeah, just if you can't find something you love within it that you can afford, then like whose son left, Bay Area guy, son did, just you can leave the hobby, and guess what? You can come back in. A lot of us didn't really get heavy into it until we had discretionary income. Wait till you have a job and or you start your own business and you're making money, and now you can buy the cards you wanted as a kid. I got to say, I don't feel that bad for the kids these days, because I was that same kid. Couldn't afford to buy boxes of cards every weekend for $16 a box. couldn't afford it. 2 to 4 packs for 50 cents or $1. So, and it's not that that's why I don't feel bad. It's because you're a kid. You're a kid. You're not making money yet. Wait till you're making money. Average Joe says, any ideas for when you try to put a set together, but get to the higher cost pieces, the rare ones, and find and things slow down? Yeah, Average Joe, this has come up before somewhere. I've talked about this. When I start a new set, I start with the most expensive pieces first, because if I can't get those, I don't want to bother getting all the common players I'm not going to care about down the road. So I'm not going to build a collection of common players that I don't care about, hoping one day I'll get, the rest of them, the Gretzky or the Jordan or the Brady or whoever it is. I'm going to start with the better cards that I can afford, and then decide from, okay, now I'm going to build out the six. I got the tough ones, and it's going to look beautiful when it's all said and done. But if you're starting with the lower end card, I've seen people say, I'm going to build the set, but I'm starting with the easy to get cards, and then I'm going to get the big one at the end. That's just never how I've done it. And
Right.
20 years of building sets that way, it hasn't been that. I haven't done it that way. Son of a Silver, I like money and I like the hobby. Well, good. I think that's most people who are here like both. Like both. Zone Select says, I love digging through value boxes when I can sell cards to trade up, and then grind to get that PSA 10 is more rewarding than spending your whole check on a high-end card. The hobby is a grind. The hobby can be a grind if you choose for it to be a grind, the way Zone Selects is doing it. And listen, if that's bringing you joy and bringing you utility, keep it up. Keep it up.
Hey, can I jump ahead here? I want to grab a comment. It's kind of speaking to me. I don't know if I can highlight it or not. I guess you can do that. Random Rips towards the bottom here. He had a comment. It's okay to dream of owning a card beyond your reach. You can inspire kids to pursue a good career. The same way many dream of owning a Ferrari so they can actually pursue it. That's not envy. What I want to say to that is, I think that it's what every time as we keep reading all these comments, and then I read this one, I think we're just not patient in general. All of us are. I mean, we all would love to have something right now. I mean, you can see it in a lot of the younger generation. If there's any younger generation here, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to offend you, but everything's so quick and so fast, and people are getting things sooner and more. You're getting to these destinations faster, or you're borrowing money, or you're leveraging yourself to get these things instead of getting there naturally, getting there by coloring up, getting there within time. Maybe it's going to take a few years to get that card. Maybe you have to save up the money. Maybe you have to buy and sell to get there, but it's going to take time. And because we want everything right now, it gets us down. And maybe we also see other people having it right now and enjoying it, but we have no idea how they're able to purchase that. Maybe they're leveraged to their eyebrows to have it, to look great on Instagram or YouTube, but maybe they don't truly own that card because it's on credit. These are the kind of things you got to think about. To get there naturally and doing it, throughout time and the steps, and it's almost like the journey to get there, the journey to collect, to build that set, to build the run, or whatever it is you're trying to achieve. That's fun. You want to enjoy that experience, because it's like anything else. Once the mail day's over, you got the card. Okay, now I got it. Now what? Now what do I do? It's like, what am I going to do now? It's almost like that chase is exciting, right? It's exciting when we chase the card, when we're negotiating the deal for that card, and we finally get it struck, and we get the card in our hands, and it's like, yes. And then it's like, okay, now what? I think that the patience is going to be an important piece moving forward, because there will be opportunities out there. How many times have you gone out and bought a card that you liked, that you didn't really necessarily have on your radar? We've talked about this before, only to find a card that you've always wanted all of a sudden become available, but now you spent money on that other card that you didn't really covet as much as the card that just became available. You had no idea it was going to become available, but we're not being patient. I do this all the time. I'm terrible at it. So I'm almost talking to myself too when I say this out loud. So
it's good to be self-aware. That's something that not everybody has or is able to be. So if you can really be self-aware and understand why it is you might covet things, as Random Rip says here, that it's not. That's not envy. Yeah, if you are not envious, but you are actually like inspired to make something of yourself, or to have a better career, or whatever it is that is going to bring these things in reach. If you're dreaming, just like Patrick Bet-David dreamed of owning the New York Yankees, now he does, or a minority owner. Gary V dreams of owning the New York Jets. That's what keeps him going. He wants to own a football team, that specific one. Maybe he will one day, and that would be pretty cool if you visualize these things happen. So yeah, I'm all for that. It's when it's true jealousy and it's literally the feeling of being inadequate. That's one way that your brain might go. But if you can train your brain to, instead of go to that direction, the envy, jealousy, inadequacy part, and go to being inspired to do great things, that's an awesome thing. As Random Rips very astutely comments here. I love the comment. JH says, what is up with the autograph prices at the National? Have they always been this high? Probably, yeah. Bay Area says, small card shows are burning me out as well. The SD collectibles are great people and put out great shows, but it's stale when you have 30 tables and 22 are Pokemon. Yeah, but it's where you are. It's the vendors that are there. My local show here, it's a monthly, and you've got the same vendors month after month, and several of them have the same inventory month after month. But once in a while, you go there expecting that, but hoping to find something great. Hobby Champ says, I'll buy cards for $20 that I feel are far better buys than some $10,000 plus cards. It's all about perspective. Yeah, agree. Carvin says, here is an idea. Create 3 goals for your collection one day, then follow to complete your goals. Once you complete one goal, start a new goal. Otherwise, don't stray and stay in your lane. Goal setting, important in the hobby, important in life. And especially if you need it to stay in your lane, then definitely use it. Son of a Silver Stacker is encouraging people to smash the like. 75 watching. We have 7, I guess at the time, 75 watching on Sports Card Dad, 60, 37, and 25. About 65 watching on Sports Cards Live. We have 137 right now. So welcome everybody to the show and hit those likes. Jeremy M, good evening. Glad to have you for a live. Carvin makes another comment, says, as a person that created products, and if anybody listening, watching doesn't know, Carvin is the person that invented Exquisite and the cup in his days at Upper Deck, worked at Panini, helped revitalize National Treasures. Dominion was a hockey product, and is now with GTS. Anyway, Carvin says, as a person that created products, my task is to create the most innovative and original ideas. However, these ideas force collectors to YOLO, FOMO, and not staying in their lane. I'm sorry, folks. Frankie does forgive him and says you did a great job, which Carvin definitely did. Tip of the mitt says, collect what you love. If you don't love something, take a break and come back. Yeah, I mean, if you don't love something, take a break. You don't have to buy just to buy. Sorry, vendors, sorry, card companies, sorry, auction houses, but people don't have to buy just to buy. Buy when you want something. I'm noticing myself, I was buying so many things over the past 10 years, and now I'm being more specific because I love so many cards in all the sports. It can be very draining on the bank account, it can be. So yeah, if you don't love and really, I like how Tip of the Mitt says, if you don't love, it's about love, really. You have, don't just buy what you like, buy what you love, maybe, if what you like is too much stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Random Rips, it's okay to draw. We did that one. CC says, must collect within oneself. We can all strive to achieve Jay Lee and John Mangini levels. LOL. Collecting is supposed to be fun and not a competition. Listen, Jay Lee is me, John Mangini collection in the chat. I mean, I don't know John Mangini. I don't know if I met John Mangini ever. I've heard about John and know a bit about him, but not much. But I'm guessing that John and I have both been in this hobby for 40 plus years and have built our collections over time. And that's it's a function of time, not necessarily money. A bit of both in some cases, for sure. Perk says, burnout when listing cards. I don't want in order to buy cards. I do want. Sorry, Perk. I'm going to skip it. Too hard to read. Son of a Silver Stacker says, you two are the younger generation to me. Okay, well, nice to meet you. Next up generation, I guess. He goes on to say, isn't the chase the best part?
It is. Yes.
Speak to that, Dennis.
That was the point. I mean, it's like once you get done chasing, And then once the card, that's at least for me. I'm not going to speak for everybody else, but once that card arrives, then it's like, okay, now what? And what I've done over the last few years is like, okay, and I wasn't really focused. I was just buying a lot of different stuff. I kept listening to Andrew and Cage and buying all the cards they told me to buy. Just joking. But I just didn't have a focus. We talk about focus. I wasn't staying in my lane. We talk about staying in our lane. Carvin, those are some great comments, by the way. We got a pretty amazing chat. We got some amazing comments in the chat. I mean, just driving this show. I'm honored to be even a part of it with all you guys. But once you get that card, once you narrow it down and you get it, then it's like, okay, now what? It's hard to wait a while to buy that next card. I just told myself that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to just be very strategic and careful. But then it's hard to justify spending the kind of money now that I want to spend on a card that I covet, because my taste has changed. And I know everybody in the comments keep saying, you should enjoy all this stuff. It doesn't matter if it's, but that's not true. I argue against that. I enjoy the card that is rare, the card that, and Sports Card Therapist and I kind of got into it on one of our episodes on this whole topic. I enjoy the rare card, the unique card, the card that not everybody has. I take great pride in that. So once you get it, and when you're targeting those kind of cards, they're expensive. It's hard. It's hard to quench that thirst, so to speak, once you're, batting up in that level. And I've had to color up to get there, but then I have to sell stuff just to get it done. But I don't regret selling the things I have. I'm happy with what I ended up with, right? So I don't know. I'm going around in circles here on that comment, but I think that once that's done, though, having the patience, like I said earlier, to wait for that one card, or targeting a card and going, okay, I'm done for now, but the next purchase I make is going to be X and Y or Z. And if these don't show up, I need to just sit back and wait for those opportunities to arrive, because they will.
Yeah, well, for sure. And speaking of the chase, 1956 Top Guy says, the chase is a dangerous drug. You got to find ways to enjoy what you have, build collages, watch highlights, read books, read the back of your cards, Google the player on the card. If you don't know enough about the player already. But hello to 1956 Tops Guy. Always good to see you. Zach Pierce says, I've literally seen 14-year-olds at card shows with 10 to 20K worth of cards, not telling people how to raise their kids, but what the heck, how, and why. Yeah, different strokes for different folks, and there's just all sorts out there. The hobby is everybody's represented in our hobby, from all different races and socioeconomic statuses and genders and origins, everything. Mike Petty says, never stop dreaming. I think, that fits. Never stop dreaming. Stop being jealous and envious. That's not good for your health. Like as Random Rip says, jealousy and envy are detrimental to your mental health. Try to avoid thinking that way, but yeah, don't stop dreaming. If you can dream and not have those jealous, envious feelings, then I think you're on a great path. Brenton says, if you follow card content on YouTube, you think everyone just goes and spends thousands at card shows, when that is not realistic for everyone. I don't know about that, Brenton. I think that only applies to certain YouTube channels and certain content creators. I see lots of content that has nothing to do with spending thousands at card shows. I think there is much more content out there than just that, just from my own curated content experience. So I would say cast a wider net, Brenton. You might see, you're going to see that for sure. You're obviously going to see that. We know that. And that's often the channels that do get the most subscribers and views, because they're really good they do high production content. They're good at thumbnails and clickbaity titles and clickbaity thumbnails. And that's gonna do it in a lot of cases. But there is other content out there for sure. Matt says, bitterness definitely leads to burnout. For me, it's adhering too closely to a predefined checklist. I need the freedom of expression to keep me going. Well said. Cage says, I am getting burned out trying to find the Beckett guy. You need a new hobby, Cage. That one's getting old, buddy. Random Rip says, I have a dozen goals that I go back and forth, never working more than a couple at a time, so I avoid burnout on any one. I love that. Work on sets, work on a player PC, sort my ridiculous amount of singles. So he's giving himself options to go back to the cards and make sure that you can always enjoy the hobby. I'm going to always come back to that. Go back to the cards. That's the hobby is, the hobby is the people is one of the taglines out there. John Newman, Sports Card Nation, that's his tagline for his content. Yes, the hobby is the people, but that's not all. That's not the only part of the hobby. The hobby is also the cards. It's also the engagement, the interaction, which is some of the people. But again, you can go back to the cards, especially if the people are bringing you down for any reason. If the people are bringing you down, go to the cards. If the cards are bringing you down, go to the people. Hey, there's not a bad way to look at it. Cage says, speaking of getting burned out, the National needs to have a writing competition between Carbon and Spinatron. That'll burn all of us out, Cage. Matt says, if it's too much of a grind, that leads to burnout. Oh, we did that one. Sorry, we did that one. God is great says, hello from the Rising Sun, Japan. Good to see you. Welcome from Japan. Love to see our international reach here. Dennis, Matt says, it's also where having a community of buddies to share in your wins really matters. Yeah, it's nice to have friends. If you don't have friends in the hobby, it's going to be less enjoyable. Whether they're local friends, kids you grew up with that are your friends now, or friends you've made online on Instagram, on whatever, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook groups, your local card shop. One of my best hobby friends who's I was at I've been to his wedding. I went through the birth of his children. I met him at the LCS, met him at the local card shop, believe it or not. And that's pretty
really
awesome.
Cool. That's a really cool story. That's what it's all about right there.
Yeah. Making a lifelong friend because you have this in common. Yeah, it's amazing. Random Rip says the fun part of the chase to me is getting a good deal and not paying more than I am willing to pay. Yeah, that's like when I'm buying a card that I really want to get, and the card should sell for say $250. Well, but I need the card for whatever reason. In my own mind I need it, and I put in a bid of like $800. It's because I want to make sure I get. If there's some other idiot like myself out there who's willing to spend more than it's worth, I want to win out and get that card, right? And then when I actually buy that card for like $275, I'm like, whoa, look at all, I'm already up. I have that much more enjoyment because I feel like, I kind of saved $300 more than my max price or whatever that number is. I can take my wife out for dinner. I can do this, do that. It's kind of a funny way of looking at it. Yeah. Kirk says, if you can't participate in the hobby because you are jealous of what other people have, then there isn't a lane for you to be happy in the hobby. Unfortunate for you. Yeah, just, I think that comes down to being self-aware and understanding what it is that motivates you as a person in this world, in this life, in this hobby.
Well, part of having the hobby community and those relationships is that you can celebrate, like we talked earlier in that comment, the wins that other people have, the new card they get. I have a bunch of Griffey friends on Instagram, and I see all their cards they're buying, and it's fun. It's exciting to watch, even if it's one that I would covet and want. It's cool to see somebody else get it. It's cool to know you're one of 3 people that have a card that's out there, and the other 2 people that have it. Something about that is so fun. It's so cool to be a part of those little clubs, and it's really cool to see someone like color up and get a card they've been looking for years, or to sell that card to that person and help them create that set run or whatever it may be. There's ways around the envy thing, and you could just truly enjoy other people winning and building their collections.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. Agree. Mookie says, beware the chase. Slow and steady wins the race. And Jeremy is a world-class chat minder standing on his head tonight. Thank you, Mookie. We're finding we have a good pace here right now between Dennis, myself, and everyone in the chat. Brenton, thank you for the comment, and you are welcome. Colin Murray says, my chase is that big collection. I don't collect. I enjoy finding the cards and providing the cards everyone is looking for. Never burns me out doing this 24/7, 365, going to my first national next week. We'll see you there, Colin. And, Colin is he's a dealer, but he loves dealing in this hobby and found his lane and stays in it. 90s Hockey says, I found a good way to always have something to chase at different price point. I PC players in different tiers of value. Example, tier 1, Joe Sakic, Jean Beliveau. Tier 2, Nicholas Lidstrom, Scott Stevens. And tier 3, Guy Hebert, and I think it's Bryant Reeves. Yeah, that's a nice way to do it. That's hockey, by the way, but there's different different ways to collect. Maybe you want to collect Michael Jordan, but you're also going to collect, I don't know, pick some other random player. I can't even think of one. No one's popping into my mind right now. Kelly Gruber. I don't know. Different sport.
Kelly Gruber.
Kelly Gruber. Hey,
The
third
old Blue
baseman
Jay.
for the Blue Jays in the early
The
90s.
old 80s Blue Jays. There you go.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know why that popped into my mind. Stooks Baseball says, my treasure hunt takes me to card shows, card shops, antique shops, flea markets, antique shows. When I leave the house, I have no idea what I'm coming home with, if anything. Love the hunt. That's like a reel I just put on Instagram, I think yesterday. Like, I'm going to the National next week. I don't know what I'm coming home with. And that's what's super exciting. That's the most exciting thing to me is, the experience that I'm about to have, but the cards also that I'm going to come home with. I don't know what they are yet. And that's going to be a lot of fun. But Stooks is like hitting the pavement here, right? Pounding the pavement, going to all different sorts of venues to find what he's looking for. And I think that's awesome. Victory Investment says, do you even hard vouch, bro? So this is Sean, who had a series of posts on Instagram today about vouching. And the big question was, when you provide a vouch, are you actually providing a money back guarantee to the person that you gave the vouch to? Not for, but if someone says, hey, can you vouch for Dennis? I say, yeah, I vouch for Dennis. Does that mean the person that asked for Dennis's vouch now gets a money back guarantee from me if Dennis doesn't come through? That's a whole other topic. Follow Victory Investments on Instagram to comment on that, and do it quickly because his story post will run out by tomorrow afternoon at some point. But that was some good content there today, Sean. Raul Lucky 7 says, hi, I've been doing breaks on eBay for 3 years, 100% feedback. eBay won't let me list as of today. I was not approved. They know something about other breakers. I feel frustrated. So listen, that's too bad, first of all, especially if you've been doing this and maybe making a living at it for 3 years, or at least a nice side hustle. I feel for you, Raul. I think that's really unfortunate. But my comment is, you have to adapt. You have to find a way to adapt. eBay is not the only marketplace out there. I'm not saying where to go, but you have to adapt. It's like, when you fall down, get back up. Right now, you've fallen down because eBay kicked you. You got to get back up, Raul. You got to get back up and find a way to make it work. I understand the frustration. Grieve over it for like 24 hours, and then look at it as a challenge. Look at it as something that can make you rise up. I think that's what I'd love to see you do, and would love to hear back from you. 2 weeks from now on the next episode of Taking Stock. What we do? Maybe, I think we'll be back from the National by then. 2 weeks from now, let's hear if you were able to do it, or even a month or whatever. But good luck. Adapt, pivot, figure it out. Good luck. Anything you want to say on that, Dennis? I mean, anything different than what I said, or?
No, I think, you got to persevere. Obstacles are going to be there. Obstacles form you, really, if you think about it. It's the obstacle. It's the way. That's one of my leadership philosophies when it comes to my job and how I lead my whole region and all my people is, overcoming obstacles is a really important, it's a knife you want to keep sharpening, because they're going to inevitably happen, and how you handle the obstacle, how you navigate around it, it's going to form you. It's going to make you better. It's going to allow you to find a new way that may even be better. It's sometimes, sometimes that defeat or that, the falling down and getting back up. I know it's cliche, everybody says it, but I think it's been really hard. I mean, I've lived it my life with what I do, and it's really hard to get there, but boy, is it satisfying when you found a new and different way to do it. So yeah, I'd say keep your head up, just like you said, Jeremy, but think about these obstacles as gifts, as opportunities to do something very different.
Exactly. Turn it around, make it an opportunity. I recently went through something like that where something kind of went sideways, and then I'm like, no, don't let it get you down. I'm talking to myself. Don't let it get you down, Jeremy. Make this an opportunity. And I feel like I did, and came out better than before. So, yep. Just look at it like that. It makes me think, this is kind of just a sort of a tangent, but it makes me think about, you see so much complaining on social media about things. And some control, but you don't see a lot of critics coming with solutions. You
No.
see a lot of criticism, but you don't see a lot of critics also providing solutions. And you think about any, I don't know, any organization I've worked in, any good leader will encourage the people, will encourage the employees, the staff, the teammates to listen. You've got a hurdle, an obstacle. Okay, identify it, understand it. How does it affect us? Now we can complain about it. We can bitch and complain, or you can get constructive. Think about ways to overcome it. Think about a solution. Come up with this. Even just brainstorm. The first solution you come up with might not be smart. It might not make any sense, but at least it's the start of a process where you're going to evolve the discussion towards something that might actually work. So, if you, I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, if you're going to critique and complain, come with a solution as well. Now, sometimes as I said, you can't, because overproduction, too many parallels. What's the solution? Less parallels. It's not a realistic solution, though. That's the thing. And it's also like no one's listening anyway, They're gonna. The thing about card companies is they only listen, and I want to think differently, and I'm gonna say this, and I don't mean it like 100%, but I'll say it for effect. They only care about the sales season. A product comes, if it sells through, that's a win for the card company. They don't care about secondary market values. They don't care about how the rookie class is going to do. They only care about the rookie class in the year that it's a rookie class. Afterwards, they're on to producing the next set, the next year's worth of products. So it's hard to get through them.
I'll say two things. That was a lot of really great. That was some of the best stuff I think that I've heard on this podcast so far, is what you just got done kind of walking through there, and this comment, and kind of how we're diving. I know we're tangenting a bit here, but I think it's vital, because it's vital to burnout. It all matters. I will say this: what people say about you doesn't matter, and also let me elaborate. It doesn't matter what people say about you. What matters is, what do you say about you? Because if someone goes, I think you're this, I think you're that, you see this in the hobby and the content and all the feuding and all that stuff. This person says this about that person. That's great. That's great. I don't really care what that's great you think that about me, but I don't think that about me. I think something different about me. That doesn't mean I need to go create a video telling everybody what I think about me. You just know what you think about you. That's a private revelation. That's something that forms you from the inside out. It's not something that needs to be broadcast or shared. Just know what you think about you and believe it. If you believe that, then all the other stuff is just going to be noise. And honestly, the more people are talking about you, the better. I mean, you're doing something right if people are talking about you. Now, you could twist that around. If you're doing something nefarious, people will still talk about you. Obviously, if you know you're not doing that, and there's suspicion, or whatever you want to call it, but you know that you're not doing something wrong, you know who you are, don't worry about it. I just think that there's a lot of voices in the crowd. Your critics will be crickets when you're failing, but they're going to be loud and proud when you're succeeding. So that's just something I've seen, and I've witnessed in my own growth. I've seen it with some of my people. Once you're able to eliminate that noise and the static and focus on what you can do, the obstacle is the way. It's going to form you. It's going to show you how to do something that no one else is going to do, because if they could just do it this way, and they're not going to learn the alternative or a way to go around, like be like water, that you're actually benefiting from that experience. You're going to have more. You're going to take more away from that. You're going to grow as a person. I don't know. Complacency is the devil. You don't want that. So, what are we doing here, Jeremy? I think we're turning into motivational speakers, brother.
Yeah, Random Rips made the comments here. Jeremy should be a motivational speaker.
That's awesome.
I saw that one come through. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think you're right about everything you just said. If you are comfortable, and now we're kind of off topic, but hey, we're going where we're going. If you are comfortable with the way you approach life and the hobby, and no matter what anyone is going to say about you, and as a content creator, I've been doing this almost 3.5 years now consistently, and not everybody loves what I do and say. I've got critics out there. But what I've done is I've curated my experience. I know for a fact there's one guy in particular I hear about, talks about me all the time. I think it's hilarious because it's like I'm literally living, as the saying, I'm literally living rent free in this guy's head, and I see none of it, and I don't even care. Like, it's like I sleep very well at night because I know that what I'm doing is like authentic, and I'm trying to do good. I'm not trying to mislead anybody or do anything wrong, devious, fraudulent, none of that. So if you one of the best things you can do is curate your own experience. And back to the topic at hand, burnout. I think if I listen to every critic out there of what I've done and said, and I've got over 800 hours of live stream content out on YouTube right now. It's a lot of 800 hours of it. And there's a lot of things that people could pick on, I'm sure, but it's okay. It doesn't bother me. I reserve the right to change my mind, to learn, to be open-minded, to change my theory over time if something new makes more sense than it did in the past. And if any of that is going to burn me out, I won't allow it. Like, why? It's like that saying, you've got however many seconds, or 80,000. If you had $80,000 in the bank and you lost 10 of those dollars, would you let it ruin the other $79,000? Well, that's an analogy to you got 80,000 seconds in a day. If someone ruins 10 seconds of it, don't let it ruin the rest of your seconds in the day. Right. I take that very seriously, very seriously.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to look at it. I think that, when you put yourself out in this, the internet sphere and in the hobby community, and you start commenting on things and having takes and having, conversations about the hobby or people in the hobby or the way the hobby works, you're going to open yourself up, fairly for folks to disagree with you or agree with you. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it's going to always be. And you just got to be ready for it. That's what I've been learning. But you got to got to be yourself, be transparent. I think the biggest thing with content creators, with anybody, with breakers, LCS owners, anybody, eBay sellers, even the tops and the paninis. I mean, we can all talk about that for days. Transparency and integrity is everything within this hobby, because there's a lot of trust that goes into, is this card really truly signed by this player? Is Topps going to redeem my redemption? Is this seller really going to take care of me? I mean, there's so many ways that you can be nefarious within this hobby. And I think it's so important for integrity and transparency to be there. I think there's probably a lot of people that are just getting tired of learning that not everybody is, and there's a lot of it. And when you focus on that, I think that can burn you out, because you go, gosh, can I trust anybody? Is everybody in it for themselves? And is that, I don't know. I think that there's something to be said for that.
Agree. Perk says, whether you are 5 or 55, if you actively participate in the hobby, you can start with nothing and grow it into something that you are proud of having. Yeah, slow and steady wins the race a lot of times. Zach Pierce says, I flip phones. FT market changes selling platforms all the time. Can't rely on one site allowing you to sell. You've got to survive and adapt. Hit so many walls with platforms over the years. Yeah, it's like, if you have one customer, you have a lot of risk in your business. If your only customer is Walmart, you're going to do great for a while, but if Walmart cuts you off, you are out of business. Just as, as someone in product, in a product business or something like that. Yeah. Don't be too reliant on one marketplace, to the discussion we were having earlier. Frankie says, researching the cards and sets is an important part of the hobby and avoiding burnout. Learn about the cards and sets before you spend money. Research will help you focus and set clear goals. Couldn't agree more. The more education and information you come equipped with, the better decisions you will make, and the cheaper your tuition will end up being. He says, I started delving into Ultra Modern this year and was quickly overwhelmed with all the parallels and numbered cards. After several days of research, I was able to set some rules to focus on. That's a clear thinker right there. Michael Irachi, I collect all decade teams, star players who only played short times for my team but did not pan out. Makes things really affordable and fun. That's a good approach. If you love it, great. Random Rips, I've been on eBay 24 years and learned quickly not to count on them for income of any type. They will disrupt your business at some point. JH says, soapbox sermon. I think that's to my 800 hours. Yeah, some of my within 800 hours of content, you're gonna have a couple soapbox sermons in there for sure. I've definitely had my share, JH. But a lot of it is just interviewing other people. That's really what I do. Tom Newman, appreciate that. Brenton says having thick skin seems elusive to me, but I always get over it after a good sulk. Yeah, I mean, hey, it's like grieving. You got to get through the process that works for you. And Zach says, "Gosh, just don't rely on eBay. I've been selling since '03. The stories I've heard of people getting kicked off out of the blue never changes. Full time. Thank you, Zach. Full time on flipping phones. Okay, got it. And for the first time, Dennis, we were at the bottom of the comments, which is kind of nice. Give my voice a rest for a minute.
There you go.
A second.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
I think that, if we're going to end this at some point, I'd like to end it on what's going to create hobby longevity. I know you and I talked about that. What's going to be good for the hobby long term? How we consume content, how we collect, how we spend, staying in your lane. We've heard a lot of really great things today. I mean, Carvin's got some great advice. I think there's been so many great comments. Learning how to collect and be creative in how you collect, overcoming obstacles, be managing the kind of content you listen to, vouching and being personal guarantors, apparently, for being a vouch for car purchases for victory. I'm just kidding. But there's just been so much great feedback from the chat section. I mean, the comment section is literally this runs this whole gamut here. And there's been so much that's been shared that makes me feel like these are the keys to hobby longevity. The community that you exist in, the friendships you make, the relationships you develop in culture and foster, the way you collect, learning how to stay within your means. All these are wonderful, great examples of how to enjoy the hobby without burning out and to give the hobby that longevity it needs, right?
Totally, man. Yeah. I got some thoughts on that. I do want to, we've had a couple of great comments come in the last minute here, literally all within the last 60 seconds, 3 of them. Well, 2 of them. One is this, thank you, Random Rips, for that. We appreciate it. Billy V says way more people are interested in getting into the hobby than people getting burned out and leaving. I think this is I'm glad Billy makes this comment because I kind of, forgot. When we were chatting earlier yesterday, Dennis, we talked about this. It's like, there are more people coming. Like, there is going to be attrition no matter what. People are going to leave the hobby every day because they've been leaving the hobby every day since 1970. And people are going to continue to leave the hobby every day for whatever reason. But at the same time, people are coming into the hobby every day for whatever reason. Some of them are reconnecting with their past. Some of them are discovering it for the first time. The hope is, in order for the hobby to grow, which seems to be what everybody seems to want, or at least most people want, we need to have a net positive gain. It can't be a zero-sum game. We don't want it to be a net loss. We want to have a net gain in people coming in over time. And I agree with Billy V. I think that is what is going on. We're seeing, even though values have come down over the last couple of years, word has it, we're seeing more people at card shows, more transactions happening just wherever on various marketplaces. So for that reason, I think the hobby is in a good place. And to bring it back to what you were saying, Dennis, about longevity, there's two kind of lanes to look at when it comes to that. One is the overall longevity of the hobby, which I've often said, as long as there are sports, there will be cards, and as long as there are people, there will be collectors. Hopefully that's true, and I believe it to be true. So I think the hobby is going to endure for quite some time, decades, hopefully 100 years. Who knows? But the other thing is longevity for us on an individual basis. How are we going to have longevity in the hobby as participants, as collectors, hobbyists, content creators, dealers, flippers, vendors, people that work in the companies, whatever it is? How are you going to have longevity? I think it's going to be by curating your experience and making sure that you are looking out for your mental health and all this, and looking out for your enjoyment. As soon as it becomes too much, again, pivot, like take a break or go back to your cards. If the cards are bothering you, go to the people, all sorts of different ways. US Sports Cards, another great comment. Being a supportive hobbyist for others is really important to grow the hobby. And I think where that really hits home for me, Dennis, is for the person like the professor might not have a lot of people around him, says, my LCS doesn't buy, so I got to go online. Well, that's fine. You can find support online, Facebook groups, Instagram, card Twitter, hobby Twitter, whatever the regulars out there on there call it. There are supports. I see all the time. 1956 Tops guy. He's great at sharing other people's pickups on his Instagram story, supporting them. That's a nice thing, and it's going to make that person who was supported feel better about the hobby as well.
I know this is random, but U.S. sports cards. I mean, did you really patent the name United States Sports Cards? You're a hero to me. How did you get that name? That's amazing to think that you're United States Sports Cards. That's a cool name. I'm sorry, that's a little off topic, but I thought that was pretty cool that's his name. Like, I don't know how many there are out there. Maybe there's a couple of them, but you're here. And so to me, you're the only one. Congratulations. Bravo to you.
Blue Thunder says Burnout on Panini junk that everyone knows won't be worth anything. Yeah, Blue Thunder, you must have. Welcome to the show. We kind of talked about that already. And just I think that the response to that is don't let that happen to you. Don't let yourself burn out on Panini junk that everyone knows won't be worth anything unless it's all you know and all you like. There is so much more to the hobby than the cards Panini has been putting out for the past 15 years. Random Rip says, absolutely, community is everything. When I got back into the hobby a few years ago, it struck me that everyone I worked and traded with in the 90s have passed away. I had to find all new people. People die. That's attrition, that is going to happen. But the beautiful thing about Random Rips is you found new people. There were new people to find. Congrats. That's awesome. That's going to help your longevity, your hobby enjoyment. It's going to keep you in the hobby and maybe help you not need to take a break or get burnout. Zach Pierce says, I want the hobby to tank so I can afford even more. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people feel that way. And if that happens, I mean, I'll be right there beside you buying even more cards myself. And the professor says, one approach I've taken is I have visited 2 of my virtual LCSs now, so I'm connected in a hybrid fashion. Through the selling process, these experienced shop owners taught me about my cards. Wherever you can go to learn about your cards, I would say go there to learn about them. There are experts in every little area of this hobby, and a lot of them are willing to help you out for sure. Random Rips, thanks to YouTube, I did. Good. That's where you can find people. I mean, I have another very good friend I only met because of YouTube when I started out, and now we're great friends. And Dennis has become a very good friend of mine. We hang out now once every 2 weeks. We hang out here, talk to each other, talk to the chat. We meet up earlier. We talk about what we're going to talk about. And then we end up talking about other things, not just taking stock. We'll talk about what's going on in your day. That's how you build a friendship, by having that small talk and being able to enjoy the small talk with somebody. Dustin from the Sports Card Dad YouTube channel, somebody that I've known Dustin for 3 years now, met him in person a few times, met several one-on-one phone calls, Zoom calls, become a friend. Do we agree with everything each other says? Absolutely not. Does it matter? No. Agreement. I forget who just said this somewhere. Agree. Oh, it was I think. Brent, I forget who. Agreement.
Agreement agreement is not required.
Yeah, agreement is not required. I would love to credit who I first heard say that in hobby content, but I think it's such a really awesome thing to consider, that you don't have to, whether it's a content creator or your friend, someone you're DMing with, you don't have to agree with everything somebody says, but you also don't have to beat them down for it. You don't have to attack them if you don't agree with what somebody says. You can just understand that they're walking their shoes. We all have such different life experiences that we're all going to be different. And if you can embrace that, or rather than put it that way, try to embrace that. Try to be okay with it. And again, agreement isn't required. I think that's a great outlook on things. Blue Thunder says Luka and Mahomes are the only exclusive Panini athletes. Besides them, I would sell all Panini immediately. Okay, great. Ziggy No gives a thumbs up. Thank you, Ziggy. All right. Well, we're an hour 25 in, Dennis. We usually try to go about an hour and a half, so we're right around there. To the chat, why don't you if you have any final comments, questions, thoughts, ideas, theories, put them out there. We'll stick around for another 5 minutes or so. Dennis, anything? I mean, you're so good at kind of like listening to when I'm talking in the chat, and then having these thoughts come. So, anything top of mind for you right now?
No, I like I said earlier, I think there's a lot of what I like about our show here is that we get to hear from the hobby community. The hobby community is, we come up with an idea, a topic that we think would resonate and provide engagement, and the hobby community runs the whole show. We had on today's show, we had a lot of folks, a lot of content creators. There's a lot of people that like, Carvin, literally who created some of the most iconic cards we have in our hobby. We had a lot of great, amazing engagement that, to me, which is really fun, is you walk away from these, I don't know about you, Jeremy, but you walk away from these episodes with a different perspective every time, because you get to hear how everybody else is how they're discerning the hobby, what's going on, the latest news. There was a comment in there a while back that said, even when we all sleep, the hobby never sleeps. There's always churning and burning. There's always something going on. You wake up the next morning and you look at your phone and what happened in the hobby. It used to be what's happening in the news. What did my favorite sports team do? But instead, it's hike it. I know you want to control how much time you have, how much screen time you have. You don't want to ignore your family, and you want to be mindful about it, right? But still, it's fun to engage in it. I never thought I would enjoy it so much, but it becomes kind of your own little world. So I love listening to the folks here. We're getting some comments. I love listening to the folks here and sharing what they have to say, listening to what you have to say, Jeremy. You got a very unique perspective as well. And just it's a way for me, and I think, and hopefully for everybody who's a part of this show, it's a way for us to all learn from one another and get glimpses into what they're experiencing in the hobby, what they would like to do, what they would tell other people to do. Because it's like we're in one big classroom, I feel like, or a lecture hall, or whatever you want to call it. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Definitely great comments. Blue Thunder says, buy Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, and Jimmy Garoppolo. And I say, don't. I say that's horrible advice. And I say, don't. I say, don't. Well, it is. I mean, it's just like, that's the exact kind of content that I don't consume, I don't produce, and I think is kind of like, are you going to underwrite people's expenditures? If you're going to say buy this, and that, are you underwriting that, Blue Thunder? Are you going to cover their losses if they have losses by taking your advice? This is the kind of content that people that people don't like. Well, I shouldn't say that. It gets a lot of clicks because people can't think for themselves a lot of the time, or don't want to put in the effort. But I can't get behind a comment like that. Like it's just I think it's irresponsible. Brenton Friesen says, would like to buy a Gretzky rookie in decent shape, but have limited options to see in person cards, living in a rural area. Any suggestions?
Ooh. I like
Gretzky rookies are, well, first of all, I did a master class on the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast just last week for their episode number 99, where I talked about everything as their guest, the Gretzky rookie. So I would say watch that, because I teach how to critique, inspect, assess, protect yourself from counterfeits, all these things. The importance of it, the difference between the tops and the O-Pee-Chee, what to look for. I talk about all that. So Brenton, I would say watch that or listen to that on the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast. That's one thing. And the other thing is that, I do auction coverage shows for 7 different auction companies outside of Taking Stock and Sports Cards Live. And whenever I'm reviewing, and I always zoom in and look at the Gretzky rookies. The PWCC weekly auction, I'm looking at those pretty much every Sunday. I would say, watch, and you can go back and kind of, what's it called, scrape or find one of those where I'm inspecting a Gretzky rookie. There's tons of those on my channel, the Sports Cards Live YouTube channel, and you can learn a lot that way. And just, when I'm doing a PWCC weekly hockey auction on a Sunday night, we're going to definitely talk about Gretzky rookies. So I'll teach you whatever I can. Zach Pierce says, we're taking shots at Jeff Wilson now. Not taking shots at Jeff Wilson, but I don't want to say taking shots, but saying that's not content that I, recommending the hottest player to anybody. Everybody knows who the hottest player is. It doesn't take a genius to read stats and watch Sports Center or ESPN or whatever to find out who's hot. That's easy to do. But it comes with some responsibility, I think. Blue Thunder, just an opinion, no need to be triggered. No, it's not an opinion, because it is an opinion, but you said buy this player, here's the comment, buy him, and him. That's not an opinion, that's advice. You are giving advice to people that are watching and listening. And I think it's irresponsible to give advice to buy certain players. Now, they could turn out, but if they don't, are you writing those checks? Are you underwriting that? That's my question. Breaking Mania says, will BBCE be doing a daily special at the National? It's one of the few places that has deals. I guess you'll find out when you get there. I don't really know. And yeah, thank you, Zach Pierce. All right, Dennis, thanks as always. Another great episode of Taking Stock. Chat, you guys killed it as usual. So thank you so much for the engagement, the comments, the questions, the everything out there. Appreciate 99.5% of it. Dennis, any final comments?
No, I think we covered all of it. Thanks for joining us on a Tuesday night, taking time away from what you would normally be doing to chat with us, talk with us. We look forward to talking again. This will be post-national, so maybe we'll have some fun stuff. Jeremy will have some fun stuff to talk about. Unfortunately, I can't make it, but hopefully we'll have some of that. Looking forward to talking again. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, and now I will be at the National all week. If anyone sees me, please say hello. I'd love to meet people and, shake hands, meet in person. It's a wonderful way to, again, just build the community and enjoy the hobby even more. Zach Pierce, it did come through. I was just answering it literally, but I do appreciate the comment. And Frankie, we will see you at the National yet again. Always great to see you, my friend. Looking forward to seeing everyone that's there. See what random rips. You come to the National, please say hi to me when you see me. I'm 6'6", everybody, and bald. You can't miss me at the National. There is one taller bald guy, but he's got a huge beard. Justin, 6'10" Sports Cards. He's 6'10". I'm only 6'6". He's bald too. If you see me, please say hello. Let me know that you are in the chat or whatever, and just would love to meet you at the National. Everybody, thank you for joining. And with that, this episode of Taking Stock is now
over.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.